Welcome back, audience of Maker's Bar. It's your boy Seth Garu Baxter, where we are creating 1 million leaders today for tomorrow. Today, in some of the portions of my shows, I like to bring in entrepreneurs who are also artists. And our guest today is one of the most soulful and incredible performers I've had the pleasure of seeing perform live. He is the lead of Chase Walker Band. He is Chase Walker himself. Chase Walker, thank you so much for joining the Maker's Bar audience today.
Seth, thank you so much for having me here, man. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's our pleasure. So, Chase, tell us, where do you hail from? Where's your origins begin?
I am from Riverside, California. Drop my glasses. So that, for anyone who is unfamiliar, it's about halfway between Los Angeles and Palm Springs. So it's what's called the Inland Empire. It's kind of like halfway between, like, it's not a small town, but it's also not a big city. You know what I mean? Very artsy. Oddly, like, a lot of well-known bands and musicians have come from there, even though there's not really a whole lot of music scene going on necessarily in Riverside. But yeah, I grew up in Riverside. I started playing piano around the time that I was 8 years old or so. Could never really find my passion for it. I think a lot of that has to do with finding the right teacher who is able to show you things in not only a constructive way, but also a way that keeps you inspired and engaged in what you're doing, so that you're not just like reading out of textbooks and like playing lullabies or 300-year-old songs, that sort of thing. So yeah, I eventually picked up the guitar around the time I was 11. Pretty quickly fell in love with it, discovered the blues music.
Well, how did you discover the blues? Who was one of your first finding artists that you really gave you a love for the blues?
My parents kind of introduced me to like Stevie Ray Vaughan and B.B. King and like a lot of the blues greats very early on. Actually, my mom, when she was pregnant with me, used to like blast Stevie Ray Vaughan in the car just so that I could hear it, because they were like, I think right around the time that I was born, they had like just discovered Stevie Ray Vaughan, and they were like also kind of just getting into just getting familiar with blues music. But ultimately, I didn't think about the blues as like a music that I would want to play until I got my first amplifier, right? It was a Line 6 amplifier, solid state. Sounded like garbage, dude. This amp was not a great amp, but it came with a deck of jam tracks that you could play through the amp. And so you could kind of like jam along to all these different instrumental tracks that were in different styles. And through that, I kind of discovered these blues tracks that were basically modeled off of like Freddie King, Albert King, B.B. King tracks.
Oh yeah, some greats.
Right. And so that was kind of like what sort of piqued my interest in it. I then later, I think around the time I was maybe 12 or 13, I went to a summer camp that was held out here in California. But it's based out of Chicago. One of the professors of music history at Columbia University in Chicago puts on a camp called the Blues Kids of America. And that was kind of my first introduction to really understanding how to play with a live band, as well as learning a lot of this blues material that I otherwise would not have really been exposed to.
Was this essentially one of your first times performing on stage live?
It wasn't my first time performing on stage, but it was like the first time that I had someone to kind of tell me like, okay, when you're not playing lead guitar, like turn your volume down so that you kind of blend in with the rest of the band, and like the concept of dynamics and supporting, not just listening to yourself, but listening to what everyone else is doing and trying to support that.
Now, can you elaborate a little further when you say the support?
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, in a band, right, it's kind of like a micro version of an orchestra, right? Like each member of the band needs to perform their part in such a way that supports the whole of the music. You know what I mean? So like if you're playing, for example, if you have multiple guitar players on stage, right? If you're both playing the exact same chord in the exact same position of the neck, and then there's, let's say, also a piano player who's playing the exact same chord in roughly the same register, it can start to get very busy in a way that's not pleasing to the ear. So knowing how to, take what other people are doing and play other things that complement that to sort of build up the music in smaller portions rather than just trying to be like the main, thing all the time, which ultimately is kind of what I ended up doing anyway, because now I just play with a 3-piece and I play all the guitar parts. So
a lot of the music that I've heard, I've had the pleasure at the Last Outpost when we would put together music events and music parties of seeing you perform live, and you strum that guitar like it is just your it is your tool of love, and I'm just so incredibly impressed with how you just do it with such ease. Now I'm curious, who of some guitar players, now you mentioned Stevie Ray Vaughan, of course, a great person, BB King, who are others, at least contemporaries, that you might look at as to great musicians you really enjoyed listening to yourself, guitar players?
Taking a ton of influence from guys like Warren Haynes, cats like from Louisiana, like Tab Benoit. If you're not familiar with him, he's like a South Louisiana legend, really big in the blues scene. He's one of those guys that not only like did I learn a lot from as far as guitar technique and guitar phrasing, but also performance, because he's like one of the best performers I think I've ever seen live, as far as how he like connects with the audience, which is something I really strive to do. Another,
I was actually going to comment on that. I was going to comment on your connection with the audience is so precise as well, brother. It just, I really find you have an ease, and it's not just communicated with your singing style and the guitar playing, but you have an engagement with the audience that I also see is very electrifying.
Thank you, man. Yeah, it's something that I feel like really makes the difference between an average show, even if the music is great and even if the performers are dancing all over the stage, right? If you can break down that wall between the stage, between the performer and the audience, and make it feel like this is a shared experience between the two of you, those are the kind of concerts that you remember for the rest of your life. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
But another influence that I draw heavily on, one of my mentors, Gino Matteo, is another blues and he kind of does a lot of music. Like he does blues and jazz and R&B and funk and soul and all of the rest. But his style of guitar playing was really informed by a lot of the blues cats in East LA from like
interesting.
the last several decades. The Delgado brothers, Chris Kane, Joey, damn, I can't believe I'm spacing on his name right now. It'll come to me in like 5 minutes.
East LA having that kind of thriving blues kind of community, that's a little bit news to me as well. But I've seen Oh, I know some cats who are out of there, but not necessarily blues, but old school rock. But it's really interesting to hear that they have that.
Danny Diaz and the Delgado brothers, very much in the scene, and they're like, it's almost it's like blues with a lot of like Latin guitar flair to it, because you're adding in a lot of those like what is it, like Dorian notes, and like, you know, making it almost like, without a better comparison, it's almost very like Santana-esque.
Okay, follow. Yeah, I get that. Santana, one of the other cats you really enjoyed?
Oh, absolutely, man. Abraxas, you can't beat that, man.
No,
As far
that's
as
hard
guitar,
to.
you know.
Yeah. And so tell me, the first time that you got on stage and you knew you killed it, where were you at and what song were you playing?
That's a good question. Um,
You can say the Outpost.
the vibes were definitely on point at the Outpost. I will say that. Well, the first time I was ever on stage, I was at this summer camp, and I'd like just started playing guitar. And one of the first songs that I had learned was Johnny Be Good. Like, you know,
Oh,
many.
yeah.
It's either Johnny Be Good or Smoke on the Water or maybe Stairway to Heaven. But I just learned Johnny Be Good, never been on stage before. And this summer camp that I was at, they had this like talent show. And so I signed up for the talent show, was like stupid nervous before I went on. Like the most nervous I think I've ever been for anything, almost. And I remember, like, as soon as I got on stage, that feeling of nervousness was like completely gone. And I don't really remember the performance all that much, but I apparently killed it because people were like talking about it for the rest of the summer camp. So I guess that might be the first one where I guess I killed it. I feel weird saying like, oh, my first time ever on stage, I was just perfect. But it didn't. It definitely like went better than I had anticipated it going. So
There is something, having done some live events and performances myself, there is something about that moment when it's like what we mentioned about having connected with your audience, and you just feel there's a groove, and you're in that groove, and you can feel that, oh yeah, this is working out. This is working out. We got this. I got this. Yeah. And so I think there's something unique, especially when you're playing the style of music you're playing, where that moment has happened. I'm always curious about.
No, definitely. I mean, that's really why, like, for me at least, the live show experience is so important, because that's where the magic happens. You know what I mean? Those moments with the crowd where you can tell that what you're trying to convey,
Relay.
Yeah. is being translated, and that they're feeling what you're putting down. And also, like I said, it's like there's no substitute for that through social media. As much content as you could make to promote a song, and as many streams as you could get, and as many albums as you could sell online, there's no substitute for that level of connection that you get when people feel your music live.
I can definitely believe that. I definitely can. I'm also one of the times when you felt, and this is, I ask this with entrepreneurs, and or they'll share it themselves, a time where you didn't feel you were your greatest, or it was a failure, but it still taught you a lesson. And failure sometimes is too harsh of a word, because I think what we're redefining is that those are learning lessons, those moments. But you just didn't feel great about it. It was kind of like, I hit the wrong note, or that chord didn't work out, or this is not coming together. Where were you at when you had that moment, and what did you do to get yourself through it?
That is another very good question. There are definitely those moments, there's some shows are just kind of destined to not go as well as others, which I I find great joy out of like hearing like bootleg records from other artists of shows where like, okay, yeah, this was, BB King. This performance is great, but you can clearly hear that it's like it's got a little rougher edges than say like live at the Regal. Let's say, you know what I mean. I will say I think the the bigger like learning moments have been more on the like business side of things, because like for shows, you record every show and you try and pick up on what could be better and try and improve, little by little. And the more shows you do, the easier that gets. But more so like on the entrepreneurial business side, you know, having toured from coast to coast back in like 2017, I kind of learned from that, like, okay, these are the kinds of shows that are sort of worth putting in the time and the effort for doing, and these are the kinds of shows that you don't really get a whole lot out of. And ultimately, as an artist, you do end up getting offered more shows that are really not the right opportunity until you start getting offered shows that are the right opportunity. But yeah,
How do you know the
what I kind of
difference,
learned from that tour though was like ultimately,
Chase?
yeah.
Just real quick, how do you know the difference when they're a good opportunity and when they're not? And what denotes which one is a better opportunity? Is it just financial, or is it venue, or?
So I heard a really good analogy about this. It might have been Ari Herstand who made it, or it could have been I'm forgetting now. But there's a sort of trifecta of things you want to look for. One is the pay, two is the opportunity, and three is how fun that gig might be and how much enjoyment you might get out of it, right? If you were to give each of those criteria a score out of 10, right, where you got 1 out of 10 for how much it pays, 1 out of 10 for the opportunity, and 1 out of 10 for how much you enjoy it. If that score doesn't add up to at least 15, then it's not a gig that you really want to do. You know what I mean? And
Okay.
Which one of those criteria you want to prioritize more really depends on where you're at in your career, and what kind of shows you want to be doing. If you're fine with doing really low paying shows that you just have a lot of fun doing, then great.
Now, being an artist who does live shows and talking about the same pathway as entrepreneurship, when is it that as an entrepreneur and handling your music business, this I'm making a career of because it makes sense financially?
Mm-hmm.
At what point do you get that insight? Is it an X amount of venues you played, or how many times you toured, that you begin to really see it's carving out a financial pathway for you?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think ultimately in this business, you have to have a way.
Chase, did we lose you? Well, we are having a storm here, and it seems that we are having technical difficulties. We're going to pause for a moment and see about getting Chase back on. Chase, can you hear me okay? Test 1, 2, 3. We're going to pause here. There we go. So Chase, thank you for bearing with us. Thank you for bearing with us with that low technical difficulty. I'm sure we're going to get some of that worked out. Glad you're back with us.
Glad to be here. Sorry about that. Yeah.
And that's all right. It's okay. So we left off where where does the point come when you are able to see that performing live and music is going to become a financially rewarding career for yourself? How do you know that? Is it a certain amount of venues you've played, or is it the largest audience that you went to, and you saw that you made the decision, this is definitely my career path? What is that stage
Mm-hmm.
or that turning
So,
point?
In this business, in the entertainment business in general, but especially in music, it is really important to have a way to supplement your income, because it's going to require, a lot of investment in not only equipment, but also time and, getting a recording made, that sort of thing. For me, I had a decision to either sort of take the admin route in the music business, because I went to Belmont University in Nashville for songwriting and music business. And so I can get a
Oh,
job.
wow. Way to go. Way to go.
Thank you. I could get positions in the music business with labels or sync agencies. I have the experience to do that. What I know about myself is that if I don't give this music thing a fair shot, now that I'm an adult and I can, really create an artist brand that's not centered around being like this child prodigy kind of thing,
Mhm.
that I would never be like fully satisfied. Like, I know that in myself, I can work 48 hours straight on music and not be burnt out in the way that I might be if I was working on, contracts for other people. You know what I mean? So if you
I
know
do.
that that's the case with yourself, then you know that it's something you can't give up. Essentially, the point at which it becomes a business is the point when you're able to set something up, whether that's shows or selling merchandise or selling records or even streams, that is bringing in some amount of income greater than what you're spending on it. When you're able to do that, even if it's in a very small way, you can take that money, store it away, like I said, supplement your income with other endeavors. You know what I mean? Have a day job, but store the money away that you make from that, from whatever you're selling, whether that's tickets or merchandise or CDs or streams, and reinvest that into more ways of earning income from your music. And that's kind of where I'm at right now. Like, we've been doing really well selling our CDs and our vinyl records, and that's given us some funds to be able to reinvest into putting on and advertising our live shows and starting to do our own sort of promotion in that respect.
So now the money is coming there and it's helping to supplement where you're putting more full time into the live performance, your music career itself.
Absolutely. And to use
You,
an analogy that's maybe hasn't aged well during the given the current political circumstances, but like if you look at Elon Musk, right?
Mhm.
Elon, his whole history is filled with starting companies just to create an income source to invest in other companies, particularly like with Tesla and SpaceX and all that.
Great example.
So it's kind of almost like I didn't watch Game of Thrones until like very recently, but if you think about like Daenerys forming her army,
Yeah.
she had to start with a small army to get a bigger army. And that's very much like what you have to do in the music industry. You have to start with a little bit of resources where you don't have very much, but use those resources to get more resources so that you can expand what you're doing.
That's a great way to put it, actually. What now? I'm also remembering that you write music yourself,
Yep.
and in that, what is your creative process? What mindset do you get yourself into during that creative process?
Yeah, I mean, the it's a really tricky thing balancing the creative brain with the business brain, right? Um,
Mhm.
to me, it all comes down to your ability to play, and play in the sense of, like, when we were all like kids and we're like playing with like toys, right? Like action figures, and we're coming up, or like Legos, right? You're building stuff with Legos and you're coming up with make believe tales of what's happening with those characters, right? That is the same function that creativity comes from. Like the whole notion of like having your head in the clouds. Some of the most creative people are, the most disorganized because their heads in the clouds all the time, but that's where they get that's where that creativity flows through. So it's like the brain's ability to play, and getting yourself into a headspace where you can really do that is sometimes not easy. And that's why sometimes like the best songs are written when the songwriter isn't trying to write a song.
I get that. So, do you have a specific zone you find yourself going into, or do you sit down for 5 days at a time and it just starts flowing? How does yours work out for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think I try to start with finding an idea, even if it's just a hook or just a concept for a song, but an idea that I can build on that I feel so strongly about that it's not just like, oh, this is a cool idea. This is an idea that has to be written. This is like this song has to be made. That's how excited I am about it. Once you have that idea, then the rest is relatively easy because now you know exactly what you're trying to do. And if you try to do that with an idea that's just kind of only somewhat exciting or compelling to you, then the whole song will be the same.
Now, you have an upcoming album.
I just released an album about coming up on like what 6 months ago, back in June or July. I'm working on an album right now. So yeah, my
What's the
studio
theme of?
for a little bit, from like October to December ish, because I've been making some upgrades and was having some major technical difficulties trying to figure out how to get all the pieces of equipment to work together. But now we're back up and running, and so yes, I'm working on some music right now.
And what's the theme, if I may ask? What's the theme for the current album? Or
Um,
if there is one?
yeah, I haven't really established much other than, some of the songs that I have on there and some of the songs that I still need to write. But like my previous album, it's, exploring uh, facets of my own influences and the different styles of music that inspire me, and trying to create blends of those styles that I don't hear very often or hear anyone else working on currently.
Can you give us some insight to who some of those people are, some of those influences? I know you mentioned,
Yeah.
we said a couple of times, BB King, etc. But are there any other influences that you're thinking about for this particular album?
Well, I don't have a track to share right now, but the song that I'm working on right now is very like Creedence Clearwater inspired, but in more of a
Oh yeah,
modern sense of like swampy music. That with a mixture of like Otis Redding slash Sly and the Family Stone slash James Brown kind of like soul vibes on top of it.
some funky stuff in there.
Some funky, swampy soul.
I like that juke joint stuff.
Absolutely.
So, in talking about the creative process, oftentimes you hear about these deals we make with ourselves. I'm going to give this 5 years. I'm going to
Mhm.
give this 10 years. I'm going to give it 2 years. Did you give yourself that same type of time frame before you got to this place?
Um,
Or a deal with yourself? Did you make a deal with yourself?
Not necessarily. I mean, in a way, but at the same time, it's like you do want to see progress. You know what I mean? You want to set goals and all that. But ultimately, if it's something that you can't give up, it's got to be something that even if something gets in the way of your ultimate 5-year plan, which it inevitably will, you have to find ways of pivoting around that and making sure you keep the ball rolling, even if it's at a glacial pace. You know what I mean? But keep it going. For example, even if you're in a place as an artist where you can't really, you don't have a big enough fan base to sell out a room full of people, make sure that you still get yourself gigs regularly and that you're playing with that band regularly, because like when you fall out of it, it can be really hard to get back into it. You know what I mean? So it's
Oh
just
yeah.
about finding ways of making sure that train doesn't stop.
That's actually a very good piece of advice. If you could play with someone,
Mhm.
dream performance, who would it be? Name your top three.
Dream performance. And is this alive or
Alive or
okay?
dead.
Okay.
They can be. Give us try.
Perfect.
Maybe you can give two alive and one dead.
Okay. Two alive. Um, I really want to play with Billy Gibbons. Like I want to meet and play with Billy Gibbons before, he gets to the point where like he doesn't he's you know what I mean? Um,
Billy Gibbons. Okay.
yeah. Because like I briefly got to meet BB King. But this was, very, very much later in his life. And like, um, yeah, I definitely love to like get to jam with Billy Gibbons at some point. But I'd say this is such a tough one. Probably. And is this play live on stage with?
Live on stage. Correct.
Okay.
I know sometimes there's so many that we really enjoy. It's kind of hard to
Yeah.
pick.
Really want to jam with Gibbons. I'd love to jam with Warren Haynes at some point. Another one of my idols. Um, and then if I can pick one legacy artist, probably Ray Charles.
Ray Charles, interesting choice. Why Ray Charles?
Just iconic, man. Like he's, I think, the gold standard for soulful expression. You know what I mean? Like just
Oh, okay. I like that. Yeah.
do like the most soulful music you've ever heard without even breaking a sweat.
You know who I'm thinking of currently, which you have a little of that flair too. I've really been digging Alan Stone, the Ego
Oh,
Motions.
oh yeah.
And that brother's voice, oh my goodness, talk about soulful. And today's artists like yourself, it's just, I can't grow tired of his style yet with this soulful nature of his voice and how he can fluctuate. Just he's another one of the ones that definitely is up there with the styles of that soul that we all can appreciate. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. He's definitely one of my favorite like newer contemporary artists for
Oh
sure.
yeah,
Between his writing and just everything he does, man.
absolutely, absolutely. So now your latest tour,
Mm-hmm.
where's the furthest place you've gone, and was it outside of California?
The furthest place we've been, I want to say it was furthest place from California was a city in Pennsylvania, about a couple hours from Philadelphia. I forget what city it was. But yeah, we played Pennsylvania, the Carolinas, Georgia, um, all the way out through Texas and Colorado, and all the way down through California. This
Any of
year,
those any of those some of your favorite spots that you performed at or that you really enjoyed? And no diss to any of the other places, just maybe the atmosphere, maybe the audience.
for sure. Yeah, I mean, up in Northern California, Biscuits and Blues, definitely one of the best venues for blues in the nation. One of the venues, I think, one of my favorite venues of all time is no longer around, but was up in Northern Oregon. Was called the Burke.
Hmm.
Played up there with AJ Croce way back when I was in high school. Um, Yeah, I mean, there's so many of these venues, man, that are just awesome. Poorhouse Bistro, another NorCal favorite. I'm trying to think of some venues.
NorCal has some good music. NorCal has some good music scenes for blues, and some of the
Really,
times that I've toured around. Oh yeah, absolutely, especially the Bay Area too.
absolutely. Yeah. I'm trying to think
Surprisingly, Oregon too.
of yeah. Um, but yeah.
Oregon also has a very rich blues scene.
hmm Yeah. No, it definitely does. Definitely does. There's a lot of great venues too out in Denver. I'm spacing on the name right now, but yeah, we played some really cool spots out there.
If you had to project Chase Walker and the band 5 years from now, what does that picture look like?
Well, no. I mean, in 5 years, I would like to be setting up our own tours, playing to 500 capacity rooms and up, which I think we can get there the next 5 years.
You think, or is that part of what you're definite? You feel like that gusto gut saying, yes, we're going to be here.
We're definitely going to be there. We're kind of just now establishing our routine with selling our own tickets. But I mean, just based on how the music's been going, I think we're definitely going to get there.
Tell us about some of the challenges. That's actually a good point. What are the challenges you're facing in selling tickets, if any? What is the when you say we're establish our routine? What does that look like? Because
So, I
this could
mean,
be helpful for some other artists.
to get to a level where you are playing bigger venues and you're selling out your own tours and that sort of thing, you do kind of need a booking agent to help set these shows up and a promoter to really uh, pull it off to make it an event, especially at that scale. To get there, you do also have to show like that you are already selling some tickets. You know what I mean? Like, unless you happen to get an in through a friend of a friend, which is also a possibility. But generally speaking, you want to be able to show that you can sell some tickets because you want them to feel like this is a good business arrangement. And so what we're working on right now is at the local level, starting to put on shows where basically we act as our own promoter and we sell the tickets ourselves, we put the ads out ourselves, and like sort of just bypass the talent buyer as the middleman, because in my own experience, many talent buyers, and there are exceptions, but many talent buyers are kind of just there to assume the risk of the show. They don't really do a lot of work on the promotion side of it to like actually get people out. And so if you're an artist who can pull over 100 people to a show, for one, you're going to require a much higher guarantee than an artist who can't pull that much. And for that, if you were an artist who can pull that many people, if you were selling those tickets yourself, you can make more money than what the promoter could guarantee you. And so it's just a very like sort of underspoken important metric to be building. And like we talked about, like there's nothing that can replace that live experience. So if you can build up your metric of how many people have seen you live and how many people you can reach to sell a ticket to, that's probably the most important area you can work on.
Where do you sell some of your tickets? Is this a combination? Because I know back in the day, dating myself, there was a combination of ways that artists would sell their tickets without a talent buyer. So do you have a combination on how you do so?
I mean, ultimately, I think the way that we've been seeing other bands do it currently is setting up your tickets as like a merchandise item on your like Shopify store, and just selling them yourself through ads on Facebook and Instagram.
It makes great sense. Makes great sense.
Yeah.
So 5 years from now, we caught the vision. where Chase Walker and the band is going to be. Okay. Now, in that amount of time, pardon me, in that amount of time of 5 years, the inspiration you find to keep going, where is that for you? Is that through your spiritual, spiritual insides, or is that just making definitive marking points for X amount of venues that you sold? Where is that for you?
Sorry, can you repeat the question one more time?
Sure. The motivation to see this 5-year plan come about, is that there a spiritual motivation, or is that you have an earmarked times where you're going to be on track for that?
So the main thing is making sure you're balancing your workload with your regular life and enjoying yourself, and like going out and hanging with friends sometimes, you know what I mean? So that you don't get burnt out, because this is a long run. This is a marathon, not a sprint. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And as well, it helps to not get burnt out so that you can stay creative, because you really like, and it is a challenge to like keep in touch with what it was that made you want to pursue this in the first place, which is ultimately the fact that you know that you love playing music. And so trying to do as much as possible that you can do to stay in love with that music. It's like a marriage, I feel like. You know what I mean? Like it takes work to really like keep
Absolutely. It's a great way to
that
put it.
alive. Yeah.
That's actually a great way to look at it. Your artistry being in a marriage, and that's actually a great way. Were your parents into music as well, or well, no, you did clarify the music that they got you into. I meant as performers.
No, I'm the first one in my family to really do anything musically at a more professional scale. Like my mom sings around the house, but she's, you know, stage fright, doesn't like singing around other people and all. Seth, are you there? He is.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that we're having very crazy weather right now, so I'm not sure if it's a small blackout or what that was. Apologies, but we are still recording.
Awesome.
So the weather is a sign that we must be onto something really good.
Right.
So my train of thought. So the spiritual motivation, you were talking about hanging with your friends and making things so you keep those things vibrant. Is that the same with your writing style for your things? So you do other activities like hang out and do other things to keep your writing vibrant for the songs you write, or do you go ahead? I'm sorry.
Absolutely. You have to have a life to write about. You know what I mean? You have to have experiences that really make you feel like you have something to say. That's the main thing. But also, and this is some advice that I got from a writing coach of mine. She said that our experience in this world is through our mind, body, and soul, right?
Mm.
And we have to satisfy each of those things in order to be in a creative place. You can't be creative if you're starving or if you're tired. You know what I mean? Like you have to make sure that you're satisfying yourself and your needs, so that when comes time to be creative, that creativity can flow and that mental play can happen.
Great words of wisdom. Speaking of words of wisdom, what would you say to a new person who's just really starting to delve into music or looking for music as a career? What's the best piece of advice you can give them? And something's going on with your lighting. Chase, something's happening with your lighting.
It's just starting to get a little dark out. My advice to anyone who's just getting started in music is hone your craft first. Get out, start playing in front of people, playing with bands. If you want to be a songwriter, start writing those songs, start taking classes on like how is it that you write a song and what are the best practices. Because if you don't have in music, if you don't have good music to sell, the rest is so much more difficult. If you have great music, it's very easy to sell it.
I dig that. Now, soulful music includes a lot of heartbreak. Sometimes, as much as to me, I think heartbreak and joy can coexist because love is this completely all enthralling emotion. But there tends to be a collective on. In order to sing really good soul, you've had to have gone through a lot of heartbreak. Is that the same way for you?
I mean, I think so. Ultimately, though, like you can sing about things that you don't know, but
We have your lighting. We have your lighting issue going on again.
that's right. There we go.
There we go.
So
Thank you.
ultimately, you can sing about things that you don't know, but if you do know what you're singing about, it tends to mean a whole lot more, and you'll have a more novel way of saying it. You know what I mean? So really, I think it just comes down to like, if you want to sing about heartbreak, that's great. If you've never been through heartbreak, I don't recommend going through heartbreak to sing about heartbreak. I would recommend sing about something you know. That's my juice.
That's actually a very wise way to look at it. I really like that. So Chase, where are you performing next, and where would you like people to get in contact with you to get samples of your music and possibly see where you're going to be performing at?
So our next confirmed date is going to be Silver City, New Mexico, May 25th. All of that information is on my website, on my social media. Join my email list because that will be kind of the quickest way to stay updated with all of those. We're looking at maybe setting something up with Harvell's sometime in June, but we haven't locked down what specific date yet. So that will also be posted on the social media and the email list.
Fantastic. And where is your social media, or what are the letters for your Instagram account or a social media you would like to give out?
So we're Chase Walker Band on all platforms, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. I'd say our Instagram and our Facebook are kind of the most active right now. And then chasewalkerband.com to check out the website and the email list and all the rest.
Chase, I really thank you so much for being here with our Makers Bar audience. It really was a pleasure. Your talent continues to grace all these other thousands of people, and we're looking forward to all the great news that's going to come from it.
Thank you so much, Seth. That really means a lot.
I sincerely mean it. I just truly value the time you've taken in your craft and just have enjoyed every single time. And it's very much an honor for me to bring you to the Makers Bar audience.
Thank you so much, brother.
My pleasure. Still Makers Bar audience, we thank you for joining us in this conversation with Chase Walker and the Chase Walker Band. You know, I try and end each show with saying the Loveolution is the revolution that you want. So let's go out and have that revolution of love. If we were able to do anything today, it was to spotlight a talent that I think a number of you should get to enjoy and check out. If you enjoyed this content, please press like, subscribe, and share. We're the Makers Bar audience, where we're creating 1 million leaders today for tomorrow. Chase Walker is one of those leaders. Chase, my friend, thank you very much. Peace and blessings to you, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you, my brother. And well, I want to say one thing to your listeners. This was definitely one of the better interviews that I've been given in a minute. So definitely like and subscribe to this channel, because I think I might have to do the same, honestly.
Chase, it's really appreciated. And truly, your words are really appreciated. No joke. I appreciate that. And I'm glad we really always, it's my goal really to create, and I was talking about this earlier, really it's my goal to always create a safe space. And controversy can come up in an organic way, but it doesn't mean that the space has to be threatened without safety, you know? And I like people, when I say about the Loveolution, I really mean that. Part of what that is even though it's via a podcast, we are connecting and we want to promote as much love and safety as possible. So I'm really glad you had that enjoyment, that encounter.
Absolutely, man. I'd love to come back anytime.
We're going to be looking forward to it, Kat. And I'm looking forward to the next time you perform, and that's out in the California area as well. Absolutely, man. Most definitely. All right. For Makers Bar, we're looking forward to seeing you guys next time. Take good care, people.